Welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we begin our final series in Phase 2 of the Spider-Verse saga. That being Rosario plus Vampire, Scarlet Knight. What if Tsukune was Spider-Man? Season 1, Part 1. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Now, a lot of people have been asking me to do Rosario Vampire for a while now. I wasn't sure what I was going to do it with, but when we came to the Spider-Verse, I thought, why not use the version of Kane Parker, that being the Scarlet Spider? Now, I know a lot of you have told me time and time again, and I've already known this myself, that you shouldn't rely fully on the anime if you're going to do this series. Season 1 is canon, Season 2 is mostly filler with like a couple of canon episodes. So yes, I am covering just Season 1, and if we do the story down the line, I will continue with the manga version of the story, just so that I can be accurate with everything. And with all that out of the way, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. A young man looked outside of his bus window, watching the countryside slowly drift off into the distance. His name was Tsukune Aono. Of course, for anyone going to school, this was no big deal. This was something that many kids his age was doing around this time. But his situation was a little different from everyone else. You see, he had failed the graduation exam to get into any of the high schools in his area or vicinity. And because of that, he had no aspirations for doing anything for the year. He figured he could just try again when the entrance exams came around next year. However, surprisingly enough, his father would come home with a happy grin on his face. The old man claimed that he had found something that someone had dropped by chance. It was an admission for another school called Yokai Academy. Tsukune was very skeptical about this, although seeing the jubilation on his parents' faces and that this was going to be some sort of boarding school where he'd have to stay there for the semester and come back during holidays and breaks, it was clear to see that they were just happy to have their child out of the house. Although, if Tsukune didn't know better, he would have sworn that his father, the way he looked a bit off. Almost like there was something that he knew, but just wasn't saying. All the same, it didn't matter. Tsukune packed his bag, and sure enough, he was the only student on that bus heading to Yokai Academy. The bus driver, a man who seemed rather shady to say the least, a man named Mr. Narai, would ask Tsukune if he were actually attending Yokai Academy, in which Tsukune would respond with a yes. The bus driver would merely warn for Tsukune to watch his back and to be careful. As Tsukune was going through a tunnel, he would try to make one final phone call. He was speaking to his cousin, who was trying to talk to him a bit before he left. They were rather close, and as such, she wanted to know more about what her younger cousin was getting into, going to this Yokai Academy. But before they had a chance to finish their conversation, the line would cut dead. And as they exited out on the other side, Tsukune found himself in a world that didn't seem all that pleasing. Maybe there was some storm coming through, or maybe there was something in the air. But the sky was a dinged like orange, not the bright and hopeful blue. The clouds still rolled around normally, but the trees were bare and almost devoid of any or all life. It was like he was walking within a haunted forest, to say the least. He was able to walk down the trail as he used his map to arrive to where the school's academy was. There was just something off. He felt like he was on Earth, but as if he was in another Earth altogether. Tsukune prepared himself, not knowing what was going to come or from where, as he could hear a mechanical sound off in the distance. As he went closer to the sound, from out of nowhere, a girl on a bike would end up crashing into him. As the two would help themselves up off the ground, he could see that the pink-haired girl was definitely something else. Truly beautiful in every way. She had what appeared to be a choker around her neck, dangling from a chain with that of a cross, or a rosary to be more specific. The girl would introduce herself as Mocha Akashia. She would apologize for hitting Tsukune. It wasn't really anything too bad, save for the small nosebleed that was coming from him. Although Tsukune had never really done much in checking, Mocha noticed something about his blood. But more importantly, she would then bite his neck. Of course, Tsukune had no idea of knowing why she had done such a thing and for what reason. Although she would later apologize, stating that she didn't mean to, but her vampire-like nature had taken over. Vampire-like nature? Of course, the two of them could hear something else coming in the distance. It sounded like an engine of sorts. What appeared next looked like nothing but fire coming straight out of hell, as they heard someone yelling for them to get out of the middle of the road. They would both jump to the side as from off in the distance, the flaming vehicle or whatever it was continued on driving by. All they could hear was yelling coming from the bike in the distance. Get a room, losers! Okay, that was harsh. Anyway, I have no idea what that was about. Perhaps a car's about to explode? No, I don't think so, Mocha would say. It looked like she was driving a flaming motorcycle. Ooh, I wonder if she's related to him. Related to who? No matter. You're attending Yokai Academy too, right? Yeah, I am. Oh, I'm going there also. You want to walk there? Tsukune would agree as he and Mocha would make their way to Yokai Academy. For the most part, everything seemed fine and normal. He found out that they were even in the same class, although that earned him a deathly threat from every boy that was in there as well. It was just something that came with life. If one boy wasn't getting any, then he didn't like it when someone else was. And when no one was getting any and they saw a cute girl, the hottest piece of ass they had ever seen, just throwing themselves on this nerdy-looking guy, well, safe to say, you were going to earn yourself the ire of everyone in that room. However, their fussing would quickly come to an end as the teacher would get all of their attention, as she would be explaining some of the rules of Yokai Academy. First off, Yokai Academy was a school made by monsters for monsters. Tsukune didn't really pay that much thought until he actually had to think about it for a minute. Wait, monsters? She had to be joking, right? Like, she couldn't be serious. Monsters? Like, real monsters? But the teacher was not joking. No. On the contrary, she was being dead serious. Yokai Academy was a school made by monsters for monsters, allowing monsters to learn how to attribute themselves better with human society. As such, she would go over some of the rules, one being that while on campus, the students were to remain in none of their human forms, and second, they were never to reveal their monster identity to another student. However, there was one boy in class who didn't really seem to reason or understand why they should have to hide themselves. a boy named Saizu Kamoya. As he stuck out his rather long snake-like tongue, he remarked that if there were a human here, then they should just eat him, because he could smell something in the air. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. It kind of smelled like human, but it didn't smell like human. Like, if human were a seasoning, it smelled like this thing was coated in, like, human. Like if human was like a salt of some sort. It's like someone poured a whole lot of salt into a dish, only this salt was human. Tsukune would just be cowering to himself, because if all of this were true, he was indeed the human they were looking for. Tsukune tried to keep himself together. I mean, after all, if the rules say that they're not supposed to reveal their monster forms or their monster identity, then technically he should be able to pass for a monster. But who was he kidding? He didn't have any freak-like powers or anything like that. If it were ever asked of him just who or what he truly was, and he had to answer, he couldn't give one. And apparently they all had transformations, so whatever he was looking at now, whoever he was surrounded by, this wasn't even their real forms. Monsters, goblins, demons, all alike, and he was surrounded by all of them. Of course, as he continued on through his day, Mocha was there for support, although it wasn't only that. She was really attracted to his blood. Although whenever she tried to ask him about it, he just kind of played it off. Although it wasn't just the blood, it was how it was colored. It wasn't like any blood she had ever seen. Of course, things didn't really go all that well for him, as Saizo from class pretty much decided that now was the time to establish the hierarchy. As Tsukune and Mocha were sitting on a bench, Saizo would approach them as he grabbed Tsukune by the collar, asking Mocha why a girl like her would be messing around with a guy like him. For some reason, Tsukune had felt it coming. Even if it were just a few seconds before it happened, he felt Saizo's presence before he even arrived. He didn't think anything of it, nor did he have any thinking of reacting. And as such, he found himself getting thrown into a vending machine. All the same, he decided to just excuse himself, and Mocha chasing after him worriedly. In the end, he didn't really know what he was supposed to do. I mean, he couldn't stay here, right? I mean, that had to be out of the question. He already wasn't, well, a monster. He was a human. If they found out who he was, and if the teacher was serious about what she said, they'd execute him on the spot. No, this was a mistake. A horrible mistake by his father. All he was going to do was just go back home and tell them it didn't work out. If he pretended like he didn't see anything and didn't know anything, then no one would ask anything. Because if these monsters were serious, I doubt that they'd just let him go freely. They'd probably track him down, kill him and his family. Mocha, in the meanwhile, was concerned for Tsukune. She wanted to make sure he was okay, but Tsukune, he couldn't stay any further. In the end, at least for Mocha, he had no choice. He revealed to her the truth. The truth being that he wasn't a monster. Mocha would be shocked by this, but for Tsukune, it was all too much for him. He couldn't stay here. He couldn't take that risk. He packed his things just as quickly as he had gotten there, and now he was ready to go. But Mocha, she chased behind him. She asked why he was leaving, why he couldn't stay. And then finally, he had no choice but to tell her. I'm not a monster. Not like you. I'm a human. Mocha would be surprised by these words, and she didn't believe him. She would even yell that he wasn't a monster. and that he wasn't a human either, but Tsukune didn't understand any of this. In the end, he knew that he couldn't stay here. He would just run off, running as fast as he could, with Mocha chasing behind him. For Mocha, she didn't just want Tsukune to stay because of the taste of his blood or anything like that. It was because of the fact that he was nice to her. She had gone to school in the human world, and the humans, they were always mean, and monsters could be just as cruel. But Tsukune was genuinely kind to her, regardless as to who or what she was. She didn't want to lose that. She didn't want to let it go. However, unbeknownst to the two of them, Saizo would be chasing not too far behind, and he had caught up to Mocha. He would corner her in the forest, revealing his true monstrous form, that of an orc. As he loomed and towered over her, he would explain that he was done playing around. He had come to finally get what was rightfully his, whether she wanted to or not. Tsukune was very close to where he had been dropped off. He was more than ready to just leave and be done with all of this when he could hear Mocha's yelling. Without any rhyme or reason, or without any form of plan or strategy, Tsukune found himself running back. He ran as quickly as he could, and unbeknownst to him, his speed had increased tenfold. Whether it were the pressure or the situation that he was in, he could feel something within him. Something he never felt before. It wasn't so much of a change that it would be totally present to him, but at the same time, it was almost as if puberty had just suddenly struck all at once, as if that thing, whatever he was meant to be, it finally brushed itself to the forefront. A feralness began to form in his eyes as he arrived to where they were, Tsukune seeing the monstrous orc looming over Mocha. "So, it looks like the brat's finally grown a pair. I thought you were going to keep running away and crying. Leave her alone, Saizo. I don't think I gave you permission to use my name, runt. What kind of monster are you even? If you keep messing with her, you're gonna find out. Is that right?" Saizo would throw a punch towards Tsukune. This time, he wouldn't ignore that sense he had. In fact, he was actually able to dodge the punch effectively. Seeing an opening, he would rush towards Mocha, preparing to grab her and get themselves out of there. However, Saizo was just as quick. Grabbing him by his collar, Tsukune now only holding on to the rosary that was around Mocha's neck as he broke off the cross around her chain. Saizo would throw him off of the cliff's edge as Tsukune would cry out as he went falling down to the ground below. Mocha was worried. If Tsukune really was just a human, then, oh no. However, she didn't even have time to worry about that, as she could feel herself beginning to change as well. She began to take on her essence, her true form. Her body started to become more refined, more firm in certain areas, more robust, if you might say. Her hair color changing from the shining and shimmering pink to that of a silver. Her eyes taking on the hue of red. Saizo could feel the tinges of fear running down his neck. He hadn't expected her to actually be a vampire, one of the most feared clan of monster. As she approached, he would immediately back away, only to find himself being kicked repeatedly. As he landed face first on the ground, she pressed the heel of her foot over top of his head, burying his face into the dirt, telling that he was nothing more but a low-life orc, and that now he should learn his place. However, this inner Mocha, if you will, had to switch her attention to something else to see if Tsukune was alright. She would immediately jump off the cliff's edge, but as she did so, she would stop herself, grabbing onto the side of the cliff using her nails, holding on to it as she could see Tsukune was sticking to the side of the cliff. Tsukune? Mocha? How are you doing that? How am I doing what? That. You're... Oh. Ow! Tsukune had lost focus and was now beginning to fall. He flung his arms up and some sort of webbing appeared, sticking to the cliff's side. Now Tsukune looked like he was just dangling by a string. And inner Mocha was perplexed. Someone please help me. I have no idea what's going on here. How the hell am I doing this? Mocha would help Tsukune down to the ground, as now they had some things that they needed to discuss. Inner Mocha with her arms crossed, and Tsukune getting a good look at before receiving a slap to the face. My eyes are up here, dimwit. Ow! I'm sorry. It's just that, yes, I know what happened. My breast got a little bit bigger. Now, will you pay attention? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, good. Now, you told me that you were human, but that's obviously not the case with you. So spill it. What are you really? What do you mean? I know I was a human. I mean, I don't know what... I've been a human my whole life. I don't know. What's wrong with me? Did something happen? Wait. Or it was you. You bit me before. Did you turn me into this? Did you... Ow! Stop being hysterical. Yes, ma'am. It's obvious that I didn't do this to you. If I were to really turn you into something, wouldn't I have turned you into a vampire? But no, instead you have powers like a spider. And also, I had been trying to say this to you earlier. Well, she had. But look. Huh? Inner Mocha would grab Tsukune's wrist, lifting up his sleeves as she took a bite. There was a mix of pain, but also a strong sense of pleasure. Stop getting aroused. Ow! Will you stop hitting me? Mocha went for another hit, and this time Tsukune managed to grab her arm. And with a nice amount of force, too. I said, stop it. You knew that hit was coming. And you had the reflexes to actually stop me, even in this state. You don't think that's strange to you? And you're telling me you've never had these powers manifest before. Of course not. I would know if I actually could do stuff like this. Tsukune looked down at his wrist as he noticed it. My blood. Yes. Your blood's purple. But Mocha would then make a little imprint on her finger, just enough to let out some of her blood. The blood of monsters is normally blue. Humans are red. However, yours is a shade of purple. That's why it's not ordinary. Why Saizo was complaining about the scent of human. I don't know why, but whatever you are, you're not human and you're not a monster either. You're something entirely different. Something different? But for Tsukune, he had no idea what that could be. Learning all of this all at once, it became almost a bit too much for him, as he finally started to pass out. All of this news was a bit too much for Tsukune to take. As he awoke, he found his head resting in the lap of Mocha, who was now back in her pink-haired form. Tsukune, you're alright? Yeah, I'm fine. But I think I'm aware of what happened. Tsukune, you're sure you're not a monster? I know I'm not, but... Tsukune looked down at his hand. Whatever had happened, whatever was going on, whatever he was, even if he wasn't a monster, his days as a human were long gone. This concludes Rosario Vampire, Scarlet Knight, What If Tsukune Was Spider-Man, Season 1, Part 1. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And come back on Monday as we continue Data Live, Spirit of the Spider. What If Shido Was Spider-Man 2099, Season 1, Part 2. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.